Nutrition Science in the University of Surrey.
Okay.
And her presentation will be about obesity may be explained by unhealthy snacking.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm delightful to be here, and I'm very pleased to be able to present some of our work from the past. Obviously, obesity is one of the public health crises in the world. The increase in obesity is also continuous, so the rise in obesity is also a continuous process, and that's why we would have to give it more attention than ever. Is it this one? Yes. Clearly, food has a strong relation with obesity. Food, in terms of quantity and quality, is one of the main contributors of obesity, and specific food items have been shown to be associated with obesity and overweight, such as sugary drinks, soda drinks, fast food meals, and others. So this actually brought us to believe that we would have to do something about this at least, and assess the habitual food intake or consumption among children who are in the elementary school years. So we were able to recruit 200, oh, what happened? Did I touch the wrong button? Is it only this one here, right? This one, right? This one? What happened? Sorry, I don't know what happened. So anyway, one of the objectives we had was to assess the habitual food intake and specifically the snacks that children aged 6 to 11 years old usually consume. We were able to recruit 208 elementary school children from 15 different mainstream schools from all around the country. So these are located in the 6 governorates of Kuwait. And what we found was that obesity is prevalent in 7.2% of the girls and boys. Overweight occurred more in boys, reaching 22%, almost 23% of the boys in that age group, whereas the girls overweight was prevalent among 16% of the girls. These classifications, this was based on the International Obesity Task Force classification for BMI. And we found that our results are similar to another study that was also carried out at the same time, conducted by Dr. Nawal Al-Hamid and her crew, and they also found that obesity is prevalent among a similar age group, which is 4 to 8 years old, and it was around, it was prevalent in terms of almost 6 to 7, or in the range of 6 to 7% to 10% of the children. So what is a healthy snack? A healthy snack would be vegetables, fruits, nuts, seeds, whole bread. Whereas an unhealthy snack or an unhealthy choice would be sugary drinks, soda, canned juice, chips, chocolate, white bread. What we found among the children was that 42% of the children did not eat vegetables at all. So they avoided vegetables, or perhaps maybe they ate them occasionally, but not regularly. And vegetables, what I mean vegetables, or by vegetables, I mean carrots, for example, cucumbers, tomatoes, things that they can actually take and walk and eat while they're walking or doing anything else. Fresh fruits were consumed daily by only 26% of the children. Dried fruits were not very common, and 91% of the children did not experience even eating dried fruit, whereas this could be a very healthy substitute for candy, for example. Nuts and seeds as well, they didn't really eat or consume too much, or actually an average quantity of nuts and seeds. Looking at the unhealthy choices of food, we found that chocolate was consumed daily by 60%, which is very big, very large. Chips was consumed also by 70% of the children on a daily basis, and candy was consumed by 44% of the children also on a daily basis. So that's not very good. Looking at the common drinks, they consumed almost 70% consumed on a daily basis the canned juices that we know and are common, very common here in Kuwait, as well as sugary drinks were also consumed regularly, either daily or weekly, by almost or actually more than 50% of the children. And soda, which is not something that children actually should be consuming, but they were consuming almost 60% on a either daily or weekly basis. So we're talking about a very disrupted, I would say, food plan for the children at a very young age. And in terms of how often do they eat outside, dine outside, or perhaps buy outside meals to the house or to home, they dine out or they eat meals from restaurants also regularly. But what was also shocking to me that at a very young age, I didn't expect them to actually depend on the school canteen very much. But it turns out that they actually depend on it either sometimes or every single day. Among 60% of them do depend on that. And because bread sandwiches are very common as a snack, it was very important to know if they do get enough whole, or what type of bread do they eat? Do they eat white bread or whole bread? And it turns out that whole bread is still not very common, and it's still avoided among children and probably among whole families. So 84% did not consume whole bread at all. When looking at the associations with BMI, we did find a trend of an association between BMI and chocolate, chips, candy, and eating or buying from the canteen. We do suspect that if the numbers are larger, or perhaps we would have to alter the data a little bit, we would find a significance of this association between these food items and BMI. So the problem with these common snacks, unfortunately, these unhealthy snacks, is that first of all, there's two main problems. There's an overconsumption of energy, nutrients, obviously, which obviously leads to obesity, and we know about that. But there's also an underconsumption of micronutrients, very important nutrients that are also, if they're deficient in them, this will lead to obesity as well. And this is evident by the literature. This study has shown that indeed certain micronutrient, vitamins and minerals deficiency can cause obesity and overweight because of a decrease or because of a problem with the metabolism of glucose. So again, what defines healthy foods? Where can I get healthy snacks that are full or very high in micronutrients but are also kind of low on the macronutrients or low with carbohydrates? The answer is whole food and unprocessed foods, and these are available in fruits, vegetables, dried fruits, nuts, and of course whole bread. Why do kids love color? Well, that's a psychological thing, but what we can learn from this is that instead of actually providing them with food that has artificial colors and trying to get them to eat different foods, we can just give them fruits and vegetables. These are very colorful fruits, our foods. So basically, providing real colored foods is better than coloring foods with color or with dyes. At the end of this presentation, I would like to thank everybody who had a hand, as they say, in the study. Of course, مركز اليرموك الصحي, مركز الخالدية الصحي, we thank them for hosting the study, specifically Dr. Fatouh Al-Jarki and Dr. Huda Al-Dwaysan, the head of the centers, as well as Suad Al-Kandiri, Ms. Suad Al-Kandiri, the head of the lab in مركز الخالدية. And also, the study would never had been conducted or carried out if it wasn't for my researchers, Reem Al-Anazi, Nof Hreish, and Fatma Abeid, who made the study very easy to conduct and analyze, and we were able to present the data to you today. Thank you very much.
Our fourth presentation will be presented by Ms. Al-Anud Al-Smayat. She granted her bachelor degree in human nutrition from Petra University, and she is at present in her final stage of her master studies in human nutrition at University of Jordan. And she will be presenting the effect of skipping breakfast on body composition and lipid profile.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to talk to you and present my thesis. It's talking about, it's related to lifestyle, dietary lifestyle, and it is having the title, Effect of Skipping Breakfast on Body Composition, Lipid Profile, Insulin Sensitivity in a group of obese adults in the University of Jordan. As previously mentioned, the global rising prevalence of obesity is characteristic as a major public health and is a major risk factor for the development of insulin resistance, cardiovascular diseases, and certain type of cancers, as well as metabolic syndrome. In Jordan, 35.9% of adults aged 18 years or older were obese. Moreover, in Kuwait, in the Arabian Gulf regions, specifically in Kuwait, the obvious increasing prevalence of obesity, approximately 1/2 of Kuwaiti females and 1/3 of Kuwaiti males were obese. In general, a breakfast meal is considered as a nutritious meal. It provides us with the recommended daily intake levels of certain vitamins, minerals. It is rich in fibers and low content of fat and lower glycemic index. And here we can see that the more frequency of breakfast, the highest satiety and decreasing the energy intake, resulting in reducing body mass index. And not only the frequency, but also the quality of this meal. Regarding to breakfast, it has been demonstrated that individuals who used to have their breakfast regularly, they tend to increase their eating frequency meals during the day, and they will increase the utilization of energy and increasing dietary-induced thermogenesis, resulting in reducing body mass index. On the other side, the content of breakfast, it's usually supposed to be rich in fiber, and fibers in order it will increase the release of saturated short-chain fatty acid in the circulation, and it will result in reducing the hepatic output of glucose and serum free fatty acid, which resulting in reducing insulin resistance and promote insulin sensitivity. And also, fibers is increasing the glucagon-like peptide 1 secretion, which in turn increasing or regulating the appetite and reducing the energy intake, resulting in reducing body mass index. Looking precisely for the skipping breakfast habit, it's a characteristic that reflect the obvious changes in lifestyle. Breakfast skipping has its effect on the metabolic impact and on the health and diseases related to obesity, like insulin resistance and dyslipidemia. Regarding to the metabolism point of view to skipping breakfast, participants or individuals who tend to skip breakfast, they also tend to consume high fat, rich in high calories diet, resulting in considered as a risk factor for dyslipidemia and increasing our positive energy balance, leading to increasing body mass index. It will reduce the ghrelin action, which is responsible to increase to regulate appetite. Reduction in ghrelin will increase the hunger, resulting in increasing body mass index. On the other side, prolonged fasting and prolonged skipping breakfast leading to hyperglycemia, followed by hyperinsulinemia, and prolonged hyperinsulinemia resulting in increasing as a risk of insulin resistance. On the other hand, it will stimulate HMG-CoA enzyme and resulting or may cause dyslipidemia. It has been shown that children and adolescents tend to skip breakfast regularly, and this particular eating habit is likely to be increased with age. And here we have to recognize the importance of the intervention, early intervention. The earlier the intervention, the better the protection against obesity and its consequences. The objective of the study is to determine the association between skipping breakfast and serum lipid levels, insulin sensitivity in the subject, and to examine the association between skipping breakfast and risk of obesity. Case control study, the recruitment was from different faculties of the University of Jordan. It consists of 105 classified into normal body weight and obese female and males, and sub-classified to skipper and non-skipper. The frequency of skipping breakfast was determined by asking the participant, do you eat breakfast regularly? If the answer was yes, they considered as non-skipper. They tend to eat their breakfast. No, considered skipper. And also they asked to write down their own conception and definition of breakfast and the time of having this meal. Also, body mass index was calculated, measured, and for biochemical analysis, overnight fasting, 5 ml fasting blood sample was drawn, centrifugate for 10 minutes at 4,000 rounds per minute, and serum glucose and serum lipid was stored at -20 centigrade, and serum insulin was stored at -80. ELISA reader was used to estimate the fasting insulin, and homoinsulin resistance equations was used to calculate the insulin resistance for each participant, and spectrophotometer was used to estimate the fasting serum lipid and glucose. Exclusion criteria: the diabetic participant having chronic diseases such as diabetic or dyslipidemia, having medication to control their lipid profile, endocrine disorders, and overweight participants were excluded. The result, there was no significant relation or differences in mean homoinsulin resistance among all the participants, according skipper or not skipper participant, unless between obese and normal body weight, regardless to breakfast status. Also, there was no significant differences observed regarding the lipid profile, unless the HDL cholesterol. It has been shown that among obese individuals, obese female, the skipper female have lower HDL cholesterol compared to a non-skipper obese female. And also the body mass index among skipper and non-skipper participants, it has been shown that significant differences. Skipper participants have a significant higher body mass index than non-skipper, regardless to gender. Limitation of this study: there has several limitations. One of them is the sample size. As we all know, that sample size, the larger the sample size, the better the result. And there was no consideration about the geographical variations. And also, there is no global agreed definition of a breakfast, and this may give the inconsistent result in different studies. Thank you.
Our last oral presentation will be presented by Ms. Hannah Freyhat. She is a dietitian. She earned her bachelor degree in nutrition and food science from Just University, and her master's degree in nutrition from the University of Jordan. And she'll be talking about interaction between sleep disorder, obesity, and exercise.
Good afternoon, everybody. I will talk today about the interaction between sleep disorders, obesity, and exercise. So we all now aware about the high prevalence of obesity among US adults and among Kuwaitis adults. Also, the complicated health risks that's associated with or resulting from obesity make the reducing of the high prevalence of obesity one of the most public health priority. So what about sleep disorders? According to the International Classification of Sleep Disorders, there are more than 80 discrete sleep disorders. But the most prevalent type that are associated with increasing risk of numerous health conditions are insomnia, which in Arabic mean araq, obstructive sleep apnea, in Arabic mean انقطاع التنفس الانسدادي النومي, and also restless leg syndrome, which in Arabic mean تململ القدمين. Okay? Now, a decreased sleep duration and quality of sleep associated with increase in body weight and body adiposity. This table shows this is according to the National Sleep Foundation, a specific, different age group and how many hours each group need. Now, what about insomnia? The definition of insomnia, or we can call it sleeplessness, is defined by sleep difficulties based on self-report. There are different types of insomnia. We have 3 different types: transient, which lasts for less than 1 week; acute, lasts for more than 1 week, and also we can call it short-term or stress-related insomnia; and chronic, which lasts for more than 1 month. The prevalence of insomnia depends on the criteria used as well as the population studied, so we don't have a specific prevalence for insomnia. It's more common in women than in males. What about the relation between insomnia and obesity? Chronically shortened sleep duration could increase appetite, which lead to food overconsumption. This result, it's supported by 2 possible mechanisms. The first mechanism, it's supported by a study done by Tahari et al. Showed that short sleep duration, 5 hours per night, were associated with 15.5% lower leptin levels and 16.4% higher ghrelin levels, independent of body mass index. So these changes in the hormonal level give or act as a powerful dual signals that the body has an energy deficit, so it increases the food intake. The other mechanism, supported by a study done by Dalman, indicate that elevated glucocorticoids hormones such as cortisols in people with insomnia cause hyperactivity in the brain. This hyperactivity, we eat more comfort food if we have a hyperactivity in the brain, and it's act as an attempt to calm this hyperactivity. The comfort food is a high-fat, high-sugar food. Okay. Also, this glucocorticoids hormone increasing deposition of abdominal fat, and thus overall leading to obesity. And what about the impact of physical activity on the insomnia? Numerous experimental studies support using physical exercise as an effective and more safer treatment for sleep difficulties rather than sleep medication. So the first study, it's study the effect of aerobic exercise improves self-report sleep quality of life in older adults with insomnia. This is published in 2010. The results indicate that moderately intense physical activity plus sleep education program are effective in improving self-reported and sleep quality, mood, and quality of life in older adults. Other study done in Egypt on the effect of aerobic exercise and depression and insomnia in postmenopausal women. This published in 2013. The results showed statistically high significant increases of both duration and quality of sleep. Now, I will talk about the second sleep disorder, which is obstructive sleep apnea. It's the most common type of sleep apnea, caused obstruction of the upper airway, characterized by repetitive pauses or apneas, literally mean without breath, and breathing during sleep that lasted for 20 to 40 seconds. Commonly, this is accompanied with snoring or loud snoring. 2 to 4% of adults have obstructive sleep apnea. Now, what about the relation between obstructive sleep apnea and obesity? We have two-way relationship. The first one, how obesity contributes to obstructive sleep apnea. Because obesity related to obstructive apnea is due to the fat deposition, specifically in the neck trunk and abdominal viscera, and the prevalence of obstructive sleep apnea in obese adult is twice that for normal weight adult. Also, male sex hormones increase the severity of obstructive sleep apnea, while female sex hormone protect obese women from sleep apnea. And now, obstructive sleep apnea implications contribute to obesity. This is a less directly relationship by increasing energy impact energy expenditure and caloric intake, and thus overall body weight. How? By changing an energy expenditure during times of sleep and wakefulness, increasing preference of energy-dense food, and increasing caloric intake, alteration in hormonal regulation specific to glucose and lipid metabolism, such as adiponectin hormones, appetite, just as leptin hormone, and satiety, such as ghrelin hormone. Changes in sleep duration, such as sleep fragmentation, which may decrease physical activity. Now, regular physical activity have a positive impact on quality of life, daytime sleepiness, exercise capacity, and obstructive sleep apnea severity and mood state. This is the study in 2012 about the effect of exercise training associated with continuous positive airway pressure treatment in patients with obstructive sleep apnea. Results shows that both treatments, this two groups, both underwent the continuous positive airway pressure, and one of the group also underwent that sleep or hygiene sleep program. So the results showed that both treatments were effective in improving obstructive sleep apnea, but continuous positive airway pressure and exercise were more effective in maintaining improvement. The last sleep disorder is restless leg syndrome. It's a neurological disorder characterized by the irresistible urge to move the legs in response to creeping or crawling sensation in the legs. It affects an estimated 3 to 15% of the American population. The causes or primary cause for this disorder is believed to be associated to iron or dopamine metabolism dysfunction. Now, how restless leg syndrome can contribute or cause obesity? The majority of studies showed small yet significant relationship between restless leg syndrome and obesity. It is associated with restless leg syndrome by two mechanisms. That obesity negatively affects dopamine status in the central nervous system due to iron deficiency, and